Good morning. Happy Wednesday. And welcome to Unwired. I am your host, Outspoken Samantha, and we are going to look at a few things today that I think that we really need to discuss, as are most of the things that I tend to get into. So we're going to look at a very, very serious piece of legislation that Gavin Newsom is using, targeting the thing that we are all most concerned about these days, which are parodies of political ads. I know that that is a concern at the top of most of our lists. So we're going to look at that. We'll also discuss using celebrities to influence politics, which seems to be the favorite strategy of the Harris-Walz campaign these days. And you have to wonder why they need so much glitz and glamour to sell their presidential ticket. So we're going to talk about that. And lastly, you will not believe the latest thing that Democrats are mad about when it comes to Trump. This man can literally do nothing right. It does not matter what he does. It's going to make them mad. So we're going to talk about that. So let's get into all of that now. I said no. Okay. So as I said, lots to talk about today. I always enjoy your guys' comments. I would love it if you would each hit the share button and invite somebody to join the conversation that you think would be interested in this discussion and in this live stream, and leave your comments below. I will read as many as I can. I am going to try and get through each story and then address the comments in between each one to kind of keep things flowing. I'm still trying to figure out the best flow to my live streams. So you guys are always welcome to make suggestions about the kind of things that you like to see or the format that you like, but I'm just doing the best that I can. Before I get started, I just have to say today is September 25th, which means that it is 3 months to Christmas. And anybody that knows me knows that I am beyond obsessed with Christmas. Like in January, I start counting down, more jokingly at that point. And I'm like, only 11 months to Christmas. And people know that I post Christmas memes and Christmas stuff all year round. And I sing Christmas songs in my home. So I love Christmas. So it is September. And this is the point where I feel like it's getting that much closer. And to me, Christmas is an entire season. It is not just like one day or 1 month. And I also feel like with just how dark and serious everything is all the time, we need that joy more now than ever. So I invite you to extend your Christmas season with me. Maybe not back to September as I'm doing right now, even though I'm not putting up trees right now. But just maybe take advantage of that just a little bit. So thank you, Mary. So glad you are on YouTube is what Mary had to offer me as our opening comment this morning. I am glad that I am on YouTube too, but I also understand that with the subject matter that I cover fairly frequently, that my days on YouTube are probably numbered, which is why I always encourage people to go over to Rumble and subscribe there as well. Even though I have not figured out how to live stream on Rumble yet, hopefully I will get that figured out soon. But I do everything I post on YouTube. Mostly everything I post on YouTube does go on Rumble as well. I don't post my shorts there because I don't really know how to do that. And again, the live streams. So I will get that figured out as soon as possible. But let's get into this first story. Hey, $2 of a super chat from Travis K. Christmas forever. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Every little bit helps. As we all know, we all feel the impact of it these days. So every little bit helps. But let's talk about Newsom and his war on comedy, apparently. So guys, it is no secret, first of all, that everything is in crisis these days. The last 3.5 years have been absolutely devastating to middle and low income Americans primarily. Like, inflation has surged, crime has skyrocketed, and we've discussed the countless situations where repeat offenders are being let back out onto the street to continue wreaking havoc on innocent people due to Democrat policies like no cash bail and lessening charges for criminal activity and cutting police budgets. There's also the consequences of mass illegal immigration. it's becoming impossible to ignore at this point, where residents in big cities like New York and Chicago to small towns like Springfield and Ohio are trying to sound the alarm on the draining of resources, among many things, but the draining of resources that are meant for the increasing number of struggling Americans, to where now both citizens who should have access to those things first, and the illegal immigrants who are dumped in their communities are now both scrounging for whatever they can get. The education system is failing. Kids' mental health is in the tank. Homelessness rates are through the roof. Young adults are dying by the hundreds every single week because of the fentanyl that has flooded into this country. Squatters have more rights than homeowners. And as far as women, we don't even have our own bathrooms anymore. So the list goes on and on of all the ways that American citizens, good people, are feeling completely overwhelmed, unsafe, unstable, and desperate and unsure about the future. But of all of the long list of challenges that I just laid out, that shockingly or interestingly, we elected our representatives to actually keep from happening, don't worry. Gavin Newsom is stepping up to set an example for the rest of the country's government officials who are slacking on their job, and he's cracking down on the thing that keeps us all awake at night. He is passing legislation to criminalize memes, to basically criminalize humor. So yeah, that's a thing that is really happening. So let's have a look at some of this. This is a tweet that the king of communism himself put out there. He said, "I just signed a bill to make this illegal in the state of California. You can no longer knowingly distribute an ad or other election communications that contain materially deceptive content, including deep fakes." So what he is pointing to there is not necessarily what he is targeting here and why. So I just have to point out, as we get into this story, I can think of anything that my family and I are more concerned about than parodies of political ads, which is what he's talking about. Let's not go back to criminalizing illegal border crossings or throwing people in jail who steal from gas stations and convenience stores, or issuing legal consequences to teachers who knowingly and willingly and intentionally show sexually explicit material to kids, or to drug users who openly deal narcotics on our streets. We've apparently just got to address the parody crisis in America, which is what Newsom is talking about here. So what got Newsom's nose out of joint on this issue was after Elon Musk retweeted an altered campaign video of Kamala Harris, where an AI version of her voice was used over top of a slideshow of everything she has, or more accurately, has not accomplished as vice president, and her utter failings in this role, especially after being handed the second highest position of power in the entire country. So if you're on the left, you have been brainwashed to believe that it is not only the government's job to protect you from hearing things that they deem as dishonest or unsafe, but that when they censor information, speech, memes, or videos, it's because they want what's best for you. The rest of us know that that is completely insane to believe, but that is what so many people on the left have been brainwashed and programmed to believe. So I think as we witnessed through COVID, we saw a mass psychological experiment as the media, the education system, social media, and big pharma all worked in conjunction with the Democrats and their anti-free speech and information control narrative to spread things that they wanted people to believe, to see what they could get people to do, like share their medical information all over social media, and to gauge what percentage of the population would comply and go along with this idea that you earn your freedom through compliance. So as much as the rest of us who still operate with common sense and logic want to believe that people will recognize that this is dangerous and against the Constitution, and we think that people are going to stand up against it, I truly think that especially after COVID, people's brains never recovered, and they now believe that a move like this from our government is totally acceptable. They were prepped to accept an authoritarian move like this in America, and now there are so many people that are just not even going to question it. They're all in on censorship, which is why so many people don't even bat an eye when Kamala Harris says things like, we need to have more control over what people post on social media. And as California carries one of the highest populations of people who have fallen for this insane narrative, it's why Gavin Newsom can get away with passing something like this and get very little, if any, pushback. So the left truly now thinks that free speech means whatever the government allows you to say and whatever they allow you to hear. Like, truly, that's where we're at. So So let's have a look at this. You know, Gavin Newsom, he did hold true to his word, one of the very few times in the history of his governorship. And he has done the thing that he said he would do, and he signed this bill. Now, let's have a look. I'm going to bring up, let me grab this video here. So really quick, one of the best takes on this issue comes from Representative Kevin Riley out of California. And we're going to go through some of the things that he had to say about it, starting out with some of the words to highlight the death of comedy in California. So 1 second here. I'm going to push play. We'll listen to about a minute and a half, and then we'll get back into it.
California, the death of satire in California, or more seriously, to lament a serious blow that has been struck against freedom of speech and a healthy democratic process in California. And that is because the California legislature has passed and Governor Gavin Newsom has signed a law explicitly designed to outlaw political parodies. We don't need to speculate about this being the purpose of this law because the governor said so directly. Several weeks ago, a parody video of Kamala Harris began circulating on social media. Governor Newsom reposted it and he said, quote, "This should be illegal. I'll be signing a bill in a matter of weeks to make sure it is." And this week, he made good on that promise. The governor again reposted the parody and said, quote, "I just signed a bill to make this illegal in the state of California." So sort of on its face, a classic authoritarian move. A person in power sees speech he doesn't like, sees speech that threatens his power, and so he uses that power, uses whatever tools he has at his disposal to silence those who would dare speak against him.
And I will link that whole video in the description box once I post this video so that you guys can listen to the whole thing because it's really interesting. But that's what this is really about. This is not about protection, just like it wasn't about health and safety. Sorry, I had to make sure I unmuted my mic because I have a tendency to forget to unmute it. But that's what this is really about. This is not about protection, just like it wasn't about health and safety during COVID. This is about banning speech that threatens the power of the authoritarian. And Representative Riley does go on to say that, yes, there is a discussion that needs to be had about regulating AI generated material in general. The rapid progression of AI material and its capabilities is something that truly does terrify me. Like, these images and videos are becoming more and more realistic and very difficult to tell if they are real or not. If they are real or not. And I have also talked a lot on this channel about the problems that are happening because how easy it is to generate AI material. We've had AI images of teens being created by their high school peers just by using a photo from a yearbook regenerated to be sexually graphic and violating. Taylor Swift herself had an experience with AI generated photos of her that were disturbing and gross. And I know that she's not the only public figure to experience that. I also talked within the last few months about the story of this high school principal who was the target of an AI generated voice recording made by a disgruntled staff member, which had him saying some pretty horrendous things and got him suspended from his job and targeted in his community. But it was discovered months later that the whole thing was fake, but unfortunately the damage was already done. So yes, there are things that need to be addressed regarding the use of AI, but that is not the concern of Gavin Newsom or Kamala Harris or any of these people who pretend that these political moves are are for our good. They, the point is that they don't want us to be able to use these tools against them, but they will have no problem using them against us. So to continue, Representative Riley goes on to point out the importance of being able to use parody in general for highlighting important aspects of the public discussion. And the reason that it's so effective is because it does catch people's attention in a way that a regular debate or a news segment is just not going to do. And what makes these things funny is that the absurdity of the material is rooted in truth on some level. So he then goes on, he goes into how this is clearly protected under the First Amendment as free speech and talks about why courts have not banned it in the past. So I have another 30 seconds of this that I want to play for you. Let me get to that point. And I would love to hear your guys' thoughts on this as well. So drop your comments and I will get to them at the as we go through this story.
The Supreme Court has long held that parodies of public figures are protected even if they are, quote, outrageous. And the court has long held that any satirical statement is protected so long as it cannot reasonably be interpreted as stating actual facts. So, in short, if a reasonable person could discern that something is a parody, then it's protected by the First Amendment. So the question when evaluating this new law would be, is it stepping over that line? And we have a very clear test case in the Kamala Harris video that, in the governor's own acknowledgement, was the inspiration for the law. It's exactly the sort of thing that the law was designed to stamp out. So let's just look at a few lines from this Kamala Harris video.
I'm so sorry. I had to unmute my microphone. I told you that that's what I did. Let me just look for 1 second because I really hope that I can find it. There was a video. I had it pulled up and now I don't know what I did with it. Yes, I see that my mic. Okay. Yeah, I had it pulled up and now I don't know what I did with it. That really is frustrating, but it is what it is. So I'm going to let him kind of go into, because he does talk about the, because he does talk about the contents of the video. I will link it in the description box if I can find it. So let's listen to his take on it, and and then we'll go from there. All right.
And see whether a reasonable person would actually believe that it's Kamala Harris. The first line of the video is this: I, Kamala Harris, am your Democrat candidate for president because Joe Biden finally exposed his senility at the debate. Now, would a reasonable person think that Kamala Harris said that when they see this video, that she actually made that statement? The video goes on. It says, if you criticize anything I say, you're both sexist and racist. Would a reasonable person believe that was actually Kamala Harris saying that in that video? Other examples, it goes on. I may not know the first thing about running the country, but remember, that's a good thing if you're a deep state puppet. Would a reasonable person believe that Kamala Harris actually said that? It goes on. Joe Biden taught me, rule number one, carefully hide your total incompetence. Would a reasonable person believe that this is actually Kamala Harris saying, rule number one, carefully hide your total incompetence? The video goes on. It says, my work on the border was, quote, catastrophic. Would a reasonable person think he said that? She said that? Now, one of the keys to effective satire, and you can judge for yourself whether this is effective or not, is that it actually does illuminate a deeper underlying truth. So one might argue, I would argue, that Kamala Harris's performance as border czar was in fact catastrophic. But a reasonable person will not actually believe that she is saying that herself in this video.
So, like I said, I wish I could have shown you the video. I don't know why I didn't have it at my disposal, but that's totally fine. So, the root of the problem that Gavin Newsom has with this video and material like it overall is that it's not about AI. It's not about protecting us. It's not about guarding against spreading misinformation or disinformation, which is what he and other Democrat dictators like to reference when they make their justifications for censoring speech. It's not about them worrying about people taking these things seriously, because we know that Kamala Harris would not actually say any of these things. And the non-comical aspect of what is being said in this video is that they're all true. So I'm sure that I don't need to explain it, but what makes this a parody is the idea of hearing Kamala Harris say the outrageous things that we know are true that she would never, ever admit. And the contrast between this supposedly unifying, inspirational, joyful, pro-American dream act that she's been putting on for weeks and versus the truth of how destructive her administration has been makes this parody that much more attention grabbing, because these are not only things that she would never say, but they are things that she needs people to forget about her or to not be aware of at all. And even thinking about her failings at the border or acknowledging that she was not selected as VP for her qualifications or any of the other things that this AI ad accurately points out, that is what threatens people's support of her. And people will listen to something like this. They will listen to the whole thing and they will laugh and they will share it, not because they think it's true or that anyone else will think it is, but because it's outrageous to imagine Kamala or anyone on the left ever openly admitting who they are and what they stand for or how bad they are for this country. And the more people hear these things, the more they will question what he says, what she says, what the mainstream media says. And that is what fosters distrust in them. And that's what this is all about. So I would love to hear your comments on this. I thought that was a really eye-opening move, particularly by a Democrat governor whose state has been known for decades of being completely immersed in chaos and destruction. I mean, we have said for years how nobody should want their state to look like California. And we've pointed to cities, primarily San Francisco has been this shining beacon of what we don't want to happen to every other community in the country. And for years, people have wondered, what is Gavin Newsom doing to address the homeless problem? What is he doing to address the crime problem? What is he doing to address the massive, unattainable cost of living in that state? I mean, people have been in crisis in California for so long, yet the only thing that he can think of to do to protect people is to pass a bill saying that we can't have you listening to parody political ads. So this, again, if he was really interested in protecting people and he really was about their best interests and making sure that his state was taken care of, there are like 100 other things that he would address before this. So it just comes back to the phrase, like, when people show you who they are, believe them, meaning that we can be in total chaos. We can be suffering with countless things in our lives and looking to our elected representatives and wondering what the heck they're doing about it. And they will ignore all of those things. But when it comes to what threatens them, that is the thing that they will address at the drop of the hat. And they can pass a bill. They can address a crisis when they want to. So that's where I am with that. So let's go on to this next topic. I want to talk about the absolutely the bewilderment and the annoyance I feel at how many celebrities are inserting themselves into our political landscape and how they are being used to influence our elections. Now, if you are a rational person, you know that the last people that we should be looking to advice about anything, whether it be marriage and raising kids, to right versus wrong, to who we should vote for, are Hollywood celebrities. These people are completely disconnected from the rest of society. And that matters because their ideas about what makes society function and work, and what will drive them to vote based on who they think will make society function and work in a way that works for their lives, that is going to be significantly different than those of us who live paycheck to paycheck, whose kids are in public school, who have a handful of police per every few hundred people instead of private security, and do not have an entire staff of people picking up the slack if we fall short. So what makes their lives work is not even remotely close to what makes our lives work. And that is what our elected representatives are for, to make sure that our lives are running as smoothly as possible, but not to the point where they're stepping in and being our babysitters, which is not what we need. But when it comes to voting specifically, celebrities have the luxury of making decisions based on whatever talking points comes from the media or from the White House, and not having to deal with the consequences of the thing that they are actually advocating for, because the area that they live in, the schools their kids go to, the financial capacity that they have, these are all things that afford them the ability to avoid the struggles that the rest of us inevitably will have to face when we find out, as we always do, that talking point led people to vote for a sanctuary city where illegal immigrants are now taking over, or cutting a police budget where now crime is skyrocketing and stores are closing up, or to pass another enormous spending bill that then drives the cost of everything up and makes it harder just to buy food. They don't have to research anything that they're told to support because it doesn't affect them, and they are under no obligation to make sure that we are doing well, because whether we are thriving or barely surviving has no effect on them at all. So they can use their status to move us in whatever direction they think sounds good, or whatever they've been told will be good, but they don't have to care if that direction has actually been good for us peasants or not. And they rarely, if ever, bother to look and see if the thing that they advocated for has had the positive impact that they were promised it would, or if it's completely destroyed a community, a city, or a state. They do get the positive press for advocating for the far left agenda, and they probably get a boost in their own career for falling in line. But whatever happens to us is none of their concern. So when a political candidate uses celebrities as their primary tool of influence for their campaign, that demonstrates this massive level of disconnect and a very deep disrespect for the rest of us. But you know that their policies are weak, and if they were to be honest about who they were as a candidate, we would probably not vote for them. So this is the only reason that you would need to dress up your campaign with glitz and glamour, because you're trying to sell people the shiniest gift possible without having to tell them that there's nothing inside that box but a giant pile of poop. So I want to get to this. I have a couple of stories here to draw this contrast between the Hollywood elite and us, which is a gap that has been growing massively, particularly in the last couple of years. So Kamala and Oprah teamed up. Let me just get my screen here. But sorry, I have to look around my camera when I do that. But this is somebody that attended this event virtually, but Kamala and Oprah teamed up for this Unite for America event, where they sat with a semi-live, semi-virtual audience to get answers to the questions that Kamala has been asked a dozen times at this point and has yet to answer. And after this event, that record still stands. She didn't answer anything. She talked a lot, but she didn't actually answer any questions. And at this event, we had Meryl Streep, Ben Stiller, Julia Roberts, Bryan Cranston, Chris Rock, and Jennifer Lopez. And then there was somebody else that I'd never even heard of. But has anyone noticed, by the way, that Trump, when he does a rally, people line up for hours. They'll stand in the rain and the cold. The stadiums are overflowing and people are pumped to be there. And not one celebrity has to be around for that to happen. I'm just saying. And thankfully, people aren't falling for this crap anymore for the most part. Of course, there are always going to be people who will easily be manipulated by this stuff, and they are the weakest of the weak. But everyone else knows that this is a show. This is just a show to distract from the fact that Kamala on her own, if the attention was on her record instead of on these Hollywood elite, she wouldn't stand a chance. So, as I've said, I am going to get to this, but we've always understood that the lives of the Hollywood elite are significantly different than how the rest of us live. But that gap has widened in the last few years. People are struggling. People are wondering how they're going to live. They're giving up even the smallest of luxuries, like eating out once in a while or being able to take a little vacation. And these are all things that these celebrities cannot relate to at all, which is why it's even, in my opinion, even in more poor taste to trot these people out there to tell us what to do when that gap between us and them is bigger now than it's ever been. So in this event, if you watched any of the clips, you know that one of the number one questions, if not the number one question, was how are you going to lower the cost of living? And let me just remind you, countless people asking that question, talking about how bad things are, points out that things are significantly worse now than they were just a few years ago. And acknowledging that these things are bad and thinking that your vote could either make things better or worse means you know that the White House administration directly affects the economy and the cost of living, meaning that the administration in the White House now is the reason that you are struggling. And I know that every time we point out that things were better under Trump, even the Democrats admitted that at that time, but they were running around saying that he was handed Obama's economy. But they knew that things were going well. They all admitted it themselves, but they just never gave Trump credit for it. So now they're just pretending that that never happened, as they usually do, as they consistently rewrite history. But if Kamala Harris and her administration wanted to lower the cost of living, they would have already. In fact, if they wanted the cost of goods for us to be affordable, they would have never let things get this bad in the first place. But every time Kamala was asked this question in this event, or pretty much any time she's ever asked this question, she gave a long-winded speech that anyone with a speck of intelligence knows was not an answer, and that if you have to dance around the issue that much, then you either know your plans for the future are going to fail or be more destructive, like price controls, or you don't have a plan at all. So let's listen to one of these prize-winning speeches. This is a young woman who is in college, and she joined this event virtually, and she tells Kamala that she's living with her parents and wondering how she's going to be able to afford to move out and to buy a home or move on to that next phase in life when she's done, because no one can afford anything right now. And this is Kamala's response to that.
So first of all, congratulations on all the success you've already achieved. And it is your story and the story of our friends before you is really, that's the American story, right? You are working hard, you have goals, you have ambitions. And so part of it is, again, the $25,000 down payment assistance. Part of it is what we need to do to also push back against a very different vision for our country. Because look, in this election, there are two very different visions for our country. One, for me, that is focused on the future, including you, and another that is focused on the past. What Donald Trump, what my opponent plans on doing for the economy is doing what he did the last time he was president and giving another tax break for billionaires and the biggest corporations that would add $5 trillion to our deficit. And get this, he plans on doing what I call a Trump sales tax, which is basically he's going to put a 20% tax on everyday necessities that economists have estimated will cost the average American $4,000 more a year, which is why Goldman Sachs, which is why Moody's, which is why Wharton School of Business, which is why 16 Nobel laureates have collectively determined, after analyzing our plans, one, mine would strengthen the economy, his would weaken it. Two, that on his plan, he would actually blow up inflation and invite a recession by the middle of next year. So when you think about the cost of living, my approach is about lifting you up. His would be about actually weakening our economy. And I feel very strongly when an individual, when a small business, when a family, when the middle class is strong, America is strong.
Amen to that. Amen to that. Thank you, Shelby.
What? Like, what was that? Like, this is, again, this was the number one question. This is something that I see across social media all the time. I see it on social media. I see it on TikTok, and it's actually really funny. This is just a little side note. One of the people that was used as one of their little clips talking about the economy, and she said something to the effect of, like, I don't know how people can even afford to live right now. There was actually an article about her after this saying, she was like, I didn't give them permission to use my video. I am voting for Trump. It was absolutely hilarious. So I love that she said that. But the question is, how are you going to make things better for me? And she thinks that giving a speech about supposedly understanding while talking about Trump is sufficient. Like, if you went into a medical appointment and you were about to get surgery and you asked your surgeon what your medical plan was, and they just sat there and talked about how bad another surgeon was, like, would that bring you any comfort or peace at all? Would that answer your question? Or would you just look at them like they were completely insane? And would you immediately leave the office and go to get a second opinion and go to find another medical professional and perhaps warn other people of not going to this particular surgeon? That's kind of what this is like. It's just mind-boggling to me. And we would not, sorry, I had to make sure my mic was on. And we would not accept this in any other aspect of our lives. So it just it just baffles me, completely baffles me. But this is how truly stupid she and all of these elites think that we are. And again, there were so many celebrities in this event, but no matter how many celebrities you bring into the room, that does nothing for my bank account for the amount I'm spending on bills or food or housing. And I'm going to share this. So this has kind of inspired my little rant today. So I'm going to pull up this article, and this just kind of shows, I mean, we already know how disconnected Hollywood is from the rest of us, but this article I was reading yesterday, and J-Lo was one of the people in the audience that was attending virtually, and this popped. I just can't with these people. So this is how disconnected, and our struggles versus the struggles that people in Hollywood face. So it says Ben Affleck and ex Jennifer Lopez face devastating blow after accepting an offer on their $68 million Beverly Hills home. So what financial challenges are Ben Affleck and Jennifer Lopez facing right now? Like, while you and me are wondering how we're going to budget food for our families for the next who knows how long, this is what Jennifer Lopez is dealing with. So Ben Affleck and his estranged wife, Jennifer Lopez, are reportedly in the final stages of selling their marital home, which they paid $60.8 million for in May of 2023. The stars, who are currently working on mediating their tricky divorce with lawyer Laura Wasser, have received and accepted a $64 million offer from a couple from New Jersey, according to TMZ. The unknown buyers are said to have fallen in love with their 38,000 square foot mansion, which they listed on Zillow for a staggering $68 million in July. However, in a devastating blow, the buyers are said to have pulled out of escrow following a death in their family. And they talk about falling out of escrow and what that means. But despite being out of escrow, the insider claims that the New Jersey couple are still interested in the property. So the property known as Crestview Manor includes a 12-bedroom, 24-bathroom main house, as well as a 5,000 square foot guest penthouse, plus a 2-bedroom guardhouse, a caretaker house, and a 12-car garage. Amenities include a bar, a home gym, a sports lounge, another bar, a boxing ring, basketball and pickleball courts, and parking for 80 vehicles. The $68 million mansion was Ben's idea and a major compromise for her. Oh my gosh, you guys, I'm just dying right now. Like, excuse me. Welcome to everybody that's joining the live stream right now. I really appreciate you dropping in the comments where you are watching the live stream from, whether I want to know what state you're in, because I always find that interesting, or even what country you're in. But also, if you're watching on YouTube, if you're watching on X, I did try to figure out how to do Rumble. I tried to figure out how to do Rumble. Haven't figured that out yet. But I'm always curious where people are watching from, or if you're watching at work and your boss doesn't know. So let me know. But I'm sorry that JLo had to compromise on her $68 million home and had to settle for $64 million instead, and that this couple may or may not buy their home. Like, that is what is being portrayed as a devastating blow to these people. I mean, if that's not relatable, I don't know what is. Sorry, I just can't stop laughing at this. It's like, if you don't laugh, you're gonna cry. I just have to say, voting is not the Emmys. You are not selecting your favorite actress or picking the prom king or queen. It's a responsibility. It is your job as a voter to be informed on these candidates, and you are not going to get that from JLo or Oprah, the mainstream media, or most of the news platforms out there. You're going to get that info from going to the grocery store, listening to your neighbors, listening to people who are living in places like Springfield or Aurora or Chicago telling you how bad things are. And you can figure out who to vote for based on crime, based on the border, based on the drug crisis, based on the homelessness crisis. It is being caused by the same people who know that they've destroyed your life. So now they feel like they have to bust out these shiny celebrities to distract you from it. And never mind, just on a completely, another note here, aside from Hollywood being totally financially on another planet from us, morally, they are known for their depravity and vile behavior. As we're learning more about this P. Diddy situation and how truly awful this person was, we're going to find out just how much was being hidden by these very same people, probably by Oprah and by JLo. That's just my opinion. Don't come for me. That's not being alleged by anyone. But we're going to find out how much these people know. And not to mention, there are documentaries that I keep hearing about just how badly children are exploited in Hollywood and people are abused in this industry. And not only that, does anyone else find it concerning that being in Hollywood, it is totally normal to be friends with predatory abusers? I mean, that's not normal for the rest of us. Most of us probably don't know one person or more than one person that's even half as bad as some of the people in Hollywood. Yet for them, you throw a rock and hit a dozen child predators, abusers, drug addicts, and every other kind of grotesque behavior. And have you ever thought about how differently we know that we view celebrities? Like, we're trying to foster strong homes and families here, and those are, a lot of the things that our values are based on. Yet when it comes to Hollywood, we're always shocked when we find out that a celebrity has been married to their spouse for longer than like 6 months, or when their kids have turned out normal and stable. Like, these people live these shiny, money-filled lives, yet they are known for being the most immoral and not only ignoring the worst behavior, but protecting people who commit these things. So these are just all of the ways that Hollywood is just on a completely different planet than the rest of us. And I don't get offended by much, and I don't even know that being offended is the right way to categorize this or to characterize this. But as I said, the gap between us and Hollywood on every level is growing drastically. The more that we find out about these people, the more we find out about the truly dark and depraved things happening behind the scenes, and what has been going on for so long that I'm sure most of them were hoping that we would never find out about. Yet there are people that we now have politicians trotting these people out to influence us to vote. I did a video on Taylor Swift and the endorsement that she did for Kamala Harris, and that people shouldn't be letting her tell them how to vote. And people were like, well, she didn't tell anybody how to vote, and she's just telling us who she voted for. And because she did her research, even though we know that that's not a thing that ever happened, but because she did her research, this is who she's going to vote for, and therefore that is sufficient enough for us to know who to vote for. And it's extremely naive to think that that Kamala Harris, that politicians aren't using these Hollywoods because they are trying to use them to sway our votes. That is exactly what they are being used for. So no, they're not outright coming out and saying you have to vote for this specific person or you need to vote for this specific person. but they are being used for their influence because people look at them for whatever reason as some kind of pillar of inspiration and morality, as if they are not the most like vile and disconnected people on planet Earth, whose lives consistently fall apart all the time. So I appreciate the super chat from Siege D. Says white and yellow trash Florida boy here. Great to see another base lady. I hope you can collab with Grid Motorsports, who informed me of this show. Thank you so much. Yes, Grid One Motorsports and I have planned a collaboration. We are going to be doing a live stream this weekend, so I will post that as a post on my YouTube page, so you guys know where to come and tune into that conversation. So that's really going to be fun. So it's mind-boggling to me. Give me 1 second here. There is actually one. Let me see if I bookmarked it in my tweets, but this lady, oh my gosh, where is she? I have a lot of stuff planned for this week. I'm going to do some more react videos to some of these debates that have been going on, but like public give me 1 second here. I wish I'd pulled this up earlier, but it's something that just made me laugh. And if I can't find it, I can't find it. But just bear with me. Sorry, I do have, no, I can't find it. And I'm not going to spend all of this time looking for it, but there was a lady, she posted a TikTok video, and she was basically just crying about how moved she was over Kamala's and Oprah's event, and moved by the words of Oprah and all of the celebrities there, and she was just sobbing at how inspirational they were. And I'm like, I don't even know what to do about that. Let's see. Support the people who support my people. I appreciate that support. I appreciate you guys. So let's get into my last story that I want to talk about today. So of all of the catastrophic events that follow Trump around, it just seems to be that he's just surrounded by the craziest things sometimes. And we just never know what we're going to hear about. But the thing that Democrats have chosen to get upset about just shows how mind controlled that these people are. They don't care about all the attempts on his life and what it would mean for this entire country, or our heavily politicized justice system, or they don't care about the flood of illegal immigrants into the country caused by the very person that they're voting for. They don't care about any of these things that they actually should care about. The thing that they are getting upset about is this particular clip of Trump at a grocery store. I believe it's in Pennsylvania. And this is what Democrats are mad about today.
Here, it's going to go down a little bit. Here, it's going to go down a little bit. It just went down $100. We'll do that for you from the White House, all right?
Thank you.
All right, bye. Nice seeing you, everybody. Beautiful. There you kids?
Yeah, they are. 3 boys.
Perfecto. Perfecto. 3 for 3. Bye, everybody.
So he was at this grocery store. Looks like it's so funny. I think there's like a thing of paper towels on the conveyor belt, and I feel that in my soul. I just ask my husband. I can't I can't survive without my paper towels. But he handed this woman $100 for her groceries, and said, let's see. He basically said, like, this is something that I plan to do in my presidency, is bring down the cost of groceries. So he hands this woman $100 to help with her groceries. And Democrats are mad. Of course they're mad, because why wouldn't they be mad? as Joe Mobley just said, Trump has given out $100 bills for decades. Just another thing libs talk about doing that conservatives actually do, being generous. And to that point, as I've talked about in some of my other content in videos, this is why we need a free society, whether it be capitalism, free market, whatever term we have to use, whatever it's referred to. But when we are all successful, when we're thriving, when things aren't astronomically expensive, when we're doing well, we are more apt to contribute to the people around us. We are more likely to lift people up that are struggling because we have the means to do so. And we are not worried about taking away from being able to support our own families. So it's not a bad thing for people to be successful as the Democrats have made it seem to be. But this is a tweet by Kai Risdal. I have no idea who this is, but he's tweeting and saying, I'm reasonably sure that's a federal crime. And this is Ron Filipowski saying Trump is now handing cash to voters. So that is their take on this. He's just trying to do something nice. And Democrats are like, that's a federal crime. That's, how dare he... How dare he do this kind gesture to people? This is another one that says, caught on tape, Donald Trump was busted handing out money to voters to cover groceries at a campaign stop. This is a clear violation of election law. So that doesn't make sense to me. He gave her $100 bill instead of grabbing her by the and they're mad about it. Would they prefer that he would have grabbed her and gave her the $100 bill? I know that comment is meant to be humorous, but there is always just a little bit of truth to these things. So you never know. Let's look at one more tweet reaction because there are plenty of these. It just blows my mind. This man is just out there engaging with people, trying to help them out, trying to connect with the voters. And I think that that's probably what Democrats are most mad about. They don't want us to see this person as a human being. They don't want any indication that this person actually cares about everyday people, which he does far more than any Democrat I think has ever demonstrated. Okay, that might not be true, but he actually stands by the things that he says. This is another tweet. It says, I knew as soon as I saw Trump help this woman with paying for her groceries that this is the route that they were going to take. And this says they're going to accuse him of buying votes. So yeah, that is where we are at. There's nothing that this man can do that these Democrats will not attack him for. The Trump derangement syndrome is out of control. It just blows my mind. And as I said, Democrat voters in particular, they don't get upset about the things that they should be upset about. They don't get upset about like the level of crisis that is affecting every aspect of our lives. And as I listen to other people, actual people talk about the things that they are dealing with and facing, people are truly legitimately scared about what is going to happen if Kamala Harris gets into the office. And it's interesting because when people talk about Trump getting into office, they're concerned about the violence, they're concerned about the unrest, all the, essentially the country's going to go up in flames, which it pretty much has. According, if you bring a Democrat into any area, there's bound to be a fire started in some capacity. But they're worried about that. But when we talk about what we're worried about as far as Kamala Harris getting into office, it's rarely about the violence, even though we know that is something that we're going to have to deal with on some level, because that's just who the Democrats are these days. They throw tantrums, they throw things, they burn things. But it's about how it's going to affect our lives on a policy level, about the cost of things, about being able to take care of our kids, and not only for us, but for their future, and not being able to conserve the things that we have been able to enjoy. It's really about the future of the country. It's almost like we've become desensitized to the level of violence that we've and unrest that we've come to expect from the Democrats, and we're really just like, that's something that we can deal with. That's something that we can face. It's the future of the country that we are really, really concerned about, because that is the thing that we are probably going to have very limited ability to correct. We can always, not that we should have to, and not that this is justification for the things that Democrat voters do or these far left activists do, but we can rebuild a store, we can rebuild a home, but we cannot rebuild a country with somebody that destroys it from the inside out, that dismantles all of the things, all of our protections, that keeps the government at bay and keeps, their power in control. Those are things that we cannot correct. So when it comes to, the things that people are truly worried about, it's just such an interesting contrast in the conversation. So that is where I am going to leave the live stream today. I really, truly appreciate everybody that has tuned in and left their comments, and for the super chats, that is truly appreciated. I really appreciate your guys' support on my channel. I'm so excited that we have, from what I can see, over 50 people watching the live stream today, which is so exciting for me. That means a lot as, a mom that is just working out of my home and just trying to add my voice to the things that are going on, because there are a lot of people that just won't speak up. And I've never had that problem. Just ask my mom as a teenager. I was not afraid to speak up about anything, which created a lot of very uncomfortable situations for my mother. But who knew that would come in handy, which is what I'm doing now. So thank you so much for your support. Please be sure to share this live stream. Invite your friends to like my channel so that I can grow it both on YouTube and Rumble. Let me know the things that you guys want to talk about. Keep it real, guys. And I will see you in the next one. Bye.